Hello everyone, I'm back. Okay, so I know I haven't uploaded in, what was it, like 46 days, 48 days, 50 days, something like that, and I have no excuse. Well, I do. Mental health. But anyway, I'm getting better now, and I just lost motivation for everything. Like, yay, depression! Anyway, today I am here with a one shot, with a permission I got a little while ago. And the one shot is called "He Just Needs to Apply Himself" by Call Me Izuku, Not Deku. This is the first in a series, incomplete series, called "He Heard You the First Time." This is, of course, the first one shot of this series, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. Here is the summary. Midoriya gets nervous on a test, and Aizawa talks to him about it. It leads to a treasure trove of trauma, which Aizawa finds but lacks the key to. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get on with this one shot. Aizawa Shota had found himself in quite the conundrum. It's not very clear to many teachers when their students dislike them, especially when the students will still smile at them and listen to them every time they're talking, not tuning out once they got what they needed. Midoriya Izuku never did that, so it was easy to assume just how happy he was to be here, and how happy he was that his teachers were heroes. But after time, it became easier for Shota to be able to see that Midoriya was at least a bit disappointed. Shota had to admit he was fooled for a brief moment, but he was rudely awakened during the first pop quiz. Shota had taken the usual method of letting the person in the front row take the test and pass it down. It wasn't Midoriya who had a problem with this, but Bakugo. He asked about Midoriya having a separate quiz, but Shota shot it down in a moment. There was no way he'd ever do more paperwork than he had to. It occurred to him that maybe this was something he had to do. He was more than okay with creating another test for a student who couldn't properly express their knowledge via pen and paper on the clock. There were procedures for doing so. Just like there were procedures for having it marked in a student's file that they would do better with that extra help. And here's where Shota started to get a bad feeling. The file was blank. All records of his middle school were kept as bare bones as possible. Bakugo's reports, the reports of someone who went to the same middle school, were on the other hand almost too full. Every grade, every club, what days he was absent, how he ranked in class, his seat number, everything, they were there. Bakugo was a fine student. Shota could tell by looking at him that he didn't really have respect for authority, a problem that they needed work on, but he trusted them enough to acknowledge his worth and do the right thing. Midoriya was the exact opposite. He looked like he'd been taught how to respect teachers, but was never given the opportunity to ask why. Little details kept swirling around in Shota's head until he finally decided to contact Midoriya's former homeroom teacher. Midoriya wouldn't make eye contact with anyone, and he seemed so out of place whenever he wasn't staring at his shoes. Shota found the school contact information in the kid's file. His shoulders were always hunched in, as if he was actively trying to make himself invisible. He picks up the phone. The kid barely makes a sound, not when he walks, not when he eats, not when he breathes. He inputs the number. He's best on defense in combat training, barely letting them get a hit in, and that's not even mentioning the expertise he's always shown in their lessons on stealth. It almost makes Shota wonder why Midoriya wants to be a limelight hero. The only way that makes sense is if you were to look through the lens of his quirk. Shota presses the call button and holds the phone up to his ear. And speaking of his quirk, the kid had no regard for his own safety. He broke bones, something that Shota still found painful. Without half a thought, without so much as flinching, the phone rings. The cherry on top, though, was when he apologizes. Every single thing that happens, in his control or out, he apologizes. Bows and he says sorry, flinches at the moment Shota raises his hand to give him a pat on the head, Tell him it's not his fault. It's almost as if you're expecting. Hello, this is Aldria Junior High's front office. Suzuki Hanako speaking. How can I help you? A voice drawls. This is Aizawa Shoda from UA. There was some shuffling on the other side. The woman sounds more awake when she talks this time. UA is a very elite school. May I ask what's your business calling here? Yes, formalities. Shoda's favourite. What time would what Tannable hero be available? Watanabe? The woman muttered. Shoda was half convinced that she was going to tell him he had the wrong name when she said, "Oh, he'll be available any old time." So tomorrow at 6 in the morning works? Shoda started, more than welcome to accommodate his own schedule. Tell him to meet me here. Shoda hangs up before Suzuki could negotiate. He had a long week ahead of him, though now he has to intercept Midoriya before he leaves campus for the day. It was a short walk from the teacher's lounge to 1A, but people were already leaving when he arrives. Some paid him no mind. Others tried and failed to not look at him as if they were staring. He could count 19 heads leave before he decides to enter. The sight is almost peaceful. A classroom, empty save for one boy leaning over his notebooks and scribbling furiously. Midoriya, a flinch. Class is over. Oh, of course, sir. He nods, stands and bows. I'm sorry, sir. Before he shoves his notebook into his bag. There's no need for you to pack up so hastily. I needed to talk to you anyways. If Shoda hadn't been an underground hero, taught to read what people fought to hide, he wouldn't have noticed the mask Midoriya calmly slid over his face. A practice move. Of course, sir. In here? Shoda shrugs, sitting down in the chair next to Midoriya's, gesturing for him to do the same. Midoriya relaxes into the chair, and the staring contest begins. People are quite upset by silence. Shoda knows this. Sitting in the quiet makes people uncomfortable, prone to talk much more than they otherwise would. This is why Shoda is surprised when he finds himself talking first. Are you setting in nicely? Yours is a large school compared to your middle school. I am. How about you? How's the new class going? Fine. Shoda muttered, shocked by the boy's conversational tone. Usually, when he asked people to stay back, they'd want to get it over with as soon as possible. They didn't start conversations, but that didn't mean he could completely unarm Shoda. He was a pro hero after all, and he knows just which buttons to press. The last class must have been quite interesting for you to have you writing like that. Which class did you have again? We had math class last, sir. A short answer with no questions. Perfect. Well then, I would think we both know that's not why I'm here. I'd like to talk to you about your test today. The silence draws on once again. Shoda is the first to speak. You seem anxious while taking the test, more so than usual. And I was wondering if you have a preferred measure of examination that would work better for you. I've only ever taken tests, sir. The confusion in his eyes was only betrayed by that in his eyes. Then could you explain what made you so anxious on this one? Well, sir, I'm usually not allowed to take tests with the other students. And why is that? My quirk developed late, sir. Late enough for people to still be wary of you in middle school? Yes. Shoda takes a deep breath. This was going to take a lot more effort than he had thought to get an answer out of Midoriya. He can't let himself get sidetracked, though. So, would you prefer to take tests alone in the future? That depends on circumstances, sir. As in the subject? No. Would I be locked in a room to take the test and I wasn't allowed to bring anything with me? So I had to fill it out with a crayon the teacher left me? It was always red. Shoda flinches as he sees how lifeless the kid's eyes have gotten. I don't know why he chose red. I don't even like the colour. His voice began to quiet, and there were no breaks. They'd lock me in there all day and test me on things I haven't been taught, and I couldn't leave to eat or use the restroom or get another crayon if mine was reduced to a waxy little stub and couldn't write anymore. Kid. Shredder pressed, beginning to get a bit wary. And so I would end up having to learn how to use as little possible to poke holes in the bubbles and multiple choice questions, and Shredder pressed his hand against Midoriya's mouth. Kid. He shouted, barely registering the pain before pulling away his hand. He only had to look at Midoriya's mouth to know that it was bleeding. Shredder's blood dripples down the boy's chin and drips onto the kid's new uniform. It coats his teeth as he asks, Excuse me, sir, is there anything else we need to talk about here? Shredder takes another deep breath, resisting the urge to sigh. This kid is a menace. He's sharp and shattered around the edges, but he still only shows the softest parts of himself. His eyes give it all away though, the fear, the pain. His body language remains trained, but his eyes start from the ceiling to the door to the window and back around the room. He registers that the boy is watching for exits when he speaks again. Not now, but I wish to talk to you again soon. For now, though, I'm going to refer you to a recovery girl, and I'm going to refer you to a recovery girl and find an available point in your schedule to start meetings with Hound Dog. Midoriya raises an eyebrow. The counselor. Now, I suggest you get on your way so you don't miss your train home. Midoriya made his way to the door in the most mechanical way possible, only pausing to say, My bus left 3 minutes ago, sir, before closing the door. Shredder, still sitting, begins to wonder what exactly he had gotten himself into. Aizawa Shredder almost laughed to himself when Watanabe first saw him. He was Shredder's visitor, so it had to be him that brought him through the gates. Of course, but Watanabe shrieked when he saw Shredder emerge from the school in his hero uniform, sporting a fresh stain around his right eye, sure to turn into a nasty purple given in a day's time. Watanabe dragged his feet, trying to dismiss himself without offending Shredder, but Shredder escorted him inside regardless, once again trying not to smile at the way Watanabe looked like he was ready to piss himself. They now sat in an empty room, primarily used for smaller meetings between a few teachers, usually to discuss joint classes, and sat Watanabe down in a chair. Shredder sat on the other side of the table in strict silence until Watanabe broke. So, Shredder, it's Aizawa. Of course, Aizawa. He nodded sagely, if only to disguise his shaking. May I ask why you called me in here today? Shredder raised an eyebrow, sputtering a response out of Watanabe. Well, don't get me wrong. I'm exhilarated to have been invited to such an illustrious establishment such as UA, but I still have no clue as to the circumstance of my invitation. Well, I can assume that you're unaware of the fact that 2 of your former students attend my class. 2? The man contemplated. Well, I'm aware Bakugo's fortune in getting in, but may I require to the identity of the other student? Midoriya Izuku. Ah. Watanabe says before swiftly locking his jaw. He opened it and closed it a few times before finally coughing into his handkerchief and inquiring. So did Bakugo end up in the general education? No, he's in the hero course. Of course. Did you teach separate classes? No. He's in the hero. Watanabe paused again. So what course might Midoriya be taking? He's in the hero course, Watanabe. Another pause quickly succeeded by him hacking into his handkerchief once more. And what exactly put you under the impression that he's... Watanabe thought for a moment. Qualified to be in this course that will no doubt lead into such a dangerous career. Well, it's not my place to give out personal details. Of course. Watanabe nodded along. But, Schroeder pressed, annoyed at the interruption. As his junior high teacher, you must know fundamentally he's very driven. Yes, a very driven boy. Schroeder's eye twitched, and cunning too. Well, twitch. He never got the best grades in any of his classes. Couldn't apply himself, I don't think. But yes, he did have some brains. And he has a reasonable powerful quirk, which... okay, I understand now. Watanabe smiled, clearing his throat. You must be thinking of the wrong Midoriya. Schroeder's eye twitched again. A man as meticulous as him rarely liked having his efforts questioned. And pray tell, why do you think that is? Because the Midoriya I taught was quirkless. And didn't that just throw a wrench into things? It was possible that Schroeder could have confused their files, that one might have said Aldria Junior High and the other said Aldria Middle School, but the chance of that happening on top of the fact that they both recognize each other and have stated they went to the same junior high before this was enough to prove highly improbable. Okay, for clarification, could you just describe him for me? Make sure we're talking about the same person. Of course, he coughed out, nodding all the while. Of course. Green hair, green eyes, freckles, red B&E brand shoes, the kind that all quirkless people are required to wear. Check, and check. Though the last piece of the puzzle didn't quite fit, Watanabe had made his ignorance in the matter quite clear. Then we are in fact talking about the same person then. Watanabe opened his mouth in retort, but Schroeder continued louder just to get his point out. Well then, I'll just have one more question for you, and then you're free to go. Watanabe waited for him to continue. Were there any special circumstances regarding Midoriya when it came to testing? Yes, of course. He was quirkless, so we followed all the proper procedures when we tested him. I'm sure you can find them online. Watanabe nodded along to his own words, getting more excitable at every passing moment at the thought of his leaving. Well, it's been a pleasure to meet you, Schroeder lied. Watanabe stood up and bowed at the dismissal. And the same to you. Have a nice day, Schroeder. Aizawa. Of course. Have a nice day, Aizawa. Schroeder waited half a minute after the door closed to slump back in his own chair and wonder what in the world he would do next. Schroeder Aizawa regrets ever having hoped anything. Every time he tried to untangle the web of half-truths Midoriya wove around himself, he ended up finding more knots and more places where the silken thread didn't exactly line up where it was supposed to. So, of course, he shouldn't have expected the clouds to clear the sun to shine down on him after talking to Midoriya's mother, Inko. She had asked him to call her. She had asked him to call her. He shouldn't have expected anything but more knots and more rain. Despite popular opinion, Schroeder hated the rain. It made patrols increasingly difficult and always found its way to get under his clothes, despite how waterproof they were advertised to be. He went into his meeting expecting some things. He knew Midoriya's quirk had developed late, but he wasn't sure just how late. Something Inko could clear up for him. He just didn't expect the answer to be that it came in on the day of the entrance exam. Schroeder always liked having more answers than questions, and this was no exception. Though he also understood that you don't always get what you want. Because of this, Schroeder knew that he'd inevitably drag his feet all the way to Nezu's office. But in the moment, he wanted nothing more than to be in the loving arms of his husband. So, after grumbling out an "I'm home," and slipping off his shoes, he slunk into the kitchen where he could smell the chicken his husband was making, hastily wrapping his arms around the other's waist. "Well now, you're more tired than usual, huh, Sho?" Shota sighed. "I'm having a problem with one of my students." "And you haven't expelled them yet? That's got to be a new record," Hizashi said, still cooking. "Not that kind of problem." "Then I can assume it's the same child who bit your hand the other day?" Shota huffed. The bandage around his hand felt extra tight now. "I can talk to them if you'd like. You can tell me what you want to know and I'll see what I can do." "Maybe. He just seems a bit distrustful around adults." "Okay, and not saying this to be rude, but are you sure it's not just you?" "I was worried it might be, but then I've talked to him and his old homeroom teacher, and then his mother. And I'm going to talk to Nezu tomorrow because I have no clue where to go next. I'd like to talk to Midori himself, but with how he reacted last time, I doubt that would do any good." "Oh, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I'm not quite sure at this point." "Well, as much as I know you distaste the idea, I think the best course of action would be talking to Midori again. Firstly, you should make it on his schedule, so send him when you'll be available and let him choose a date. And secondly, let him choose where to meet. If he's not comfortable at school, make sure he understands he can meet you anywhere." Shota hummed in agreement before saying, But if I meet up with him again, be with me, okay? You're better at this than I am." "Of course, Shota," Hizashi says with a scheming smile. "If you admit it's a when and not an if." "When I meet up with him again, be with me." "Of course." "Thank you." "Anytime, and I mean it too. Now, go set up our show and we can talk about this more after we're full." And so Shota did. They talked and they laughed. They knew life would be okay until the next morning, when Shota had his meeting with Nezu. Reminiscing about last night's laughter would do nothing more to calm him, so with an echoing knock, Shota entered the principal's office, wondering exactly how far he'd go for Midoriya. Midoriya Izuku got an email at 4 a.m. He shouldn't have really been surprised that his teacher was up that early, considering how tired he always seemed to be, but he was nonetheless. He wasn't too surprised when he got the email. After he bit his teacher's hand, he knew expulsion wouldn't take long to follow. He had taken the next day off as a sick day, surprising himself when he came home when he found out he had a fever, and came to a few conclusions. 1. He got an email from the teacher this week, and 2. The worst case scenario, he'd get expelled. The best case scenario, he was getting whatever information he was needed for him to follow up on his meetings with Hound Dog. What he got was much more hexing. Midoriya. Firstly, I would like to say I'm sorry. I apologize for making you feel unsafe in my classroom. You do not need to apologize for every little thing, and I'm sorry if I made you feel like you did. I'm sorry for putting my hand up to your mouth. If I had known you were so adverse, I would have never done it. So, I also apologize for making you so uncomfortable while taking the test, and wish to discuss it further whenever possible, whenever you're comfortable. If you're uncomfortable at school, here is my schedule for next month. I will be bringing my husband to the meeting since he is much better with children than I am. And I wish you feel free to bring whoever you wish as well, as long as you feel safe. Shota Aizawa Eraserhead. Hide. Aizawa S at plusultra.edu. He took a minute to process and even longer to write a response. Eraserhead Sensei, you don't have to apologize for any of that, but thank you. I'm really sorry for biting your hand, and I hope you're okay. I'm next available at I'm available next Wednesday at my work after my shift ends, and I won't bring anyone with me. Izuku scheduled the email to send at a more reasonable time before making a foolish attempt at sleeping. For a teacher and a student who spend 6 days of the week cooped up in the same room, they do an impressive job of ignoring each other. Shota never asked Midoriya any questions, and Midoriya never looked at Shota in the eye. And time passed quicker than it should have, with the anxiety muffling their sense of time. And then it was Wednesday. Shota had to reschedule his shift that night, so he'd be pulling an all-nighter, something that he would never be telling the kid. And Midoriya went through his shift on autopilot, something Shota could easily have guessed by the robotic "Welcome to Cabinet Cafe, what can I get for you?" that sounded as soon as he entered. His students' eyes were half glassed over, but cleared in an instant when they entered. "Present Mike?" "Little listener, nice to meet you." "Same to you." Shota wasn't sure of what to say. Looked at his husband, who provided him with only a smile and a nod. Shota cleared his throat. "It's nice to see you again, Midoriya." "Yes," he deadpanned, not looking up from the table he was cleaning. There's no use in denying it. What did you want to ask me?" "Well, first off," Hisashi started, "would you mind if we sat down?" "Go ahead, we're not close yet. It's just a slow night, so I'm getting ahead." "Now," Hisashi pondered out loud, "how do you think you did on the last test?" 73%. Shota drew in a breath. 74. With how many questions there were, 74% should have not been an achievable score. "Partial credit," Shota mumbled. Midoriya hummed. "And you're bringing this up to me because I need to bring my test scores up or I'll be dropped to Gen Ed?" "You don't have to worry about that," Hisashi cut in. "The test is only a fraction of your grade. The rest is impeccable. The problem comes to the fact that you knew the material, but you just can't test on it." "What are you going to do about it?" See what changes we can make to improve your testing experience. You would take the test on your own." Hisashi saw a flicker of worry in Midoriya's eyes. "Or with a teacher or counselor present. You could present the material to us any number of ways. Any number of things. We just need to make sure your grades reflect what you know." Midoriya was silent on this, only talking once again when he moved to another table. "Why do you want to do that?" "Because you're my student," Shota speaks up, "and you're a smart kid." Midoriya stopped cleaning for a moment, cracking his back and sighing. "I don't even know what to say to that. Just sure. You guys can change whatever you like until my scores go up. Sorry for the trouble." Kid, it's not trouble. We're teachers. That's our job." "Sure, but that doesn't mean you want to go out your way to help me when I'm not scoring well." "You know, little listener, it kinda does. When you grow up and have, well, not an actual job, but a well-paying job, you'll understand that you try your best to get a job that you enjoy, not just one that pays the bills. You want to do something you enjoy and hope it pays well." "And teaching pays the bills?" Midoriya pondered, seemingly more ticked off than before. "On his own," Shota shrugged. "Barely, but with 2 teachers and pro heroes and a talk show host, we more than get by. What we're trying to get at though is that our teaching is something we enjoy. We do it for ourselves, but we also do it for you. So we want to make sure that you can take full advantage of the resources laid for you and show your potential." Midoriya cut himself off with tears in his own eyes. Hisashi's tightening hand around his was the one thing that kept him from going over to comfort the boy. I'm sorry. We're closed now? Okay, Midoriya. Hisashi smiled a kind smile. Have a good night. Yeah, you too. And the doors closed with a ringing behind them. So, Shota asked, So what? How is he? What do you think? Oh, Shota, I just want to give him a big hug. He looked so sad. He did. And he closed up the second he closed up when we started talking about paying bills. He did, Shota says again, darker this time. He is not okay, Shota. I know, Hisashi. There were a million things to say, but none worth talking about. They both knew what the other was thinking. Shota wanted to ask Midoriya about the story of his quirk status, and his middle school, and Bakugo, and a million other things. Hisashi told him to focus on one thing at a time. Rushing would only bring more problems. They needed his trust first and foremost, and that would only come with time and making the right moves. So no, there was nothing to say that hadn't already been said. They both agreed to save the boy from society, from himself. They didn't know yet. All they knew is that they were going to take it that it was going to take time. Okay, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that. It's currently 9:21, and I'm hoping to get this video out in about an hour or so. Let's be honest, it's going to take another 2 hours, because hopefully, fingers crossed, I added edits, like one of my favourite Podfic is out there. Hang on, let me just get their YouTube, because I will link them down in the description. There's 2 of them, actually. P Podfics and at Angst Podfics. And I absolutely love their fics, so please go over to them. They both make BSD fics. At Angst Podfics also makes BSD podfics. They also make Demon Slayer podfics, and I love their channel. I'm not too much into Demon Slayer, but gosh, their podfics are really good, so I highly recommend you check them out. No, they did not ask me, I just genuinely like their shit. Anyway, God help me, because I'm on to editing now. Fuck. I'm gonna add little noises, I'm gonna add stuff, and hopefully it ends up good. God help me. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Hopefully I'll get this video out tonight. Bye.